Hi, I'm Brent Johnson.
And I'm Chris Soer.
Today we are at St. Wenceslaus Parish in South St. Louis. Now this is the second Czech parish in St. Louis. The first one, it was St. John Nepomuk. We actually visited that church and did a video about the organ, 2 videos. And Chris, you helped me explore that Kilgen organ there that had some interesting provenance. We don't know where all the pipes came from. We discovered some pfeffer and some wicks and who knows what else was in there. I've kind of got a curious one here. Have you ever been here to this church before?
I've never been
This
here.
is your first time here. I've been here once before and I got a peek at the organ and there were just some things that looked a little strange. I've played another Kilgen from a similar period, and it didn't look like this one did on the inside. So I'm hoping you'll be able to help me with all of your knowledge of Kilgen. You've already opened up the books and looked in for me about what you've got from your files. What can you tell me about this instrument?
It was built in 1925 into 26. It looks like they signed paperwork in December of 25, or it did something with purchases in 25. It looks like that they reused stuff from another instrument, or there was another instrument in town that got moved here. From everything that we know from the parish, that it's possible that the parish had another Kilgen before, but more than likely not. Okay. So we're going to look to see if we can find anything that's an anomaly that says this is an older organ from a different place that got moved, and see what we find.
Okay. Well, first I want to offer my thanks to John Harper, the organist here, who couldn't be with us today, but he did let us come in and look around. And he even checked the church's files to see if they had any information, and there's just nothing. The church was fairly new in 1925. This was the first organ they had, so anything that is old didn't come from an older organ here.
Right.
So it came from something else. So we have no idea. The church has no idea, so this is going to be an exploration for us all. Let's start. I'm going to go just give it a listen, though, and see what at the console. We've got 14 ranks of pipes up there. I'm going to hear what it sounds like. Sounds like fun. Okay. Well, we're here at the console. This looks like a very standard Kilgen console from the 20s. Yep. The first thing I'd notice, especially in the stop list and the size of the console, is it feels a whole lot like the Sisters of Carondelet that we did a couple of years ago with Horst. And that organ was from 1925. So we believe this one's 1926.
Yes.
So that would make sense. But looking at the stop list, it's almost identical. There's like, I think they have a string in the grate we don't have and a trumpet. So Kilgen had a pretty standard off-the-shelf stop list, I guess.
Yes, I mean, it was a factory. It was producing a lot of instruments. They would have kept pretty standard specs in mind. And in fact, a long time ago, they used to send out catalogs with specification A, specification B, or whatever number model that worked well. And you know, all organs of that time period, everybody wanted A, B, and C first. So if you're buying a 3-rank instrument, you're starting with A, B, and C, and then you start adding and adding and adding. So they had pretty standard ways of doing things, including all the way to their chest building, their console building. Everything was standardized. So if you wanted a 2-manual instrument, you would purchase this, and this is your budget, so you can have these stops.
Well, and they've got kind of a little bit of everything here to fill in all the colors you might want. The organ's in 2 cases. And the swell is over here to my right and grates on the left. We'll start with the swell. First thing we have in there is a 16-foot Borden is the basis for it. Dark, deep, exactly what you expect. Yep. And then that's borrowed at 8 foot as a stop diapason, same stop. And then that's even borrowed one more time as a 4-foot flute d'amour. And not to stop there, we have one more at the 2-foot there level. So if we put all of those together, 16, 8, and 4 flutes with the 2 on top. Big fluty sound, and unfortunately the tremolo is not really working today. I'm trying to make it work by forcing it, but would love to have a big, deep theatrical sound, I'm sure, on those big flutes. But it's a very lovely.
And Kilgen would use that unit flute design over and over and over and over and over again, of course. And then if you had the space and you had the money, it was the same stops they would just make the flute d'amore an individual rank, and then the flautino an individual rank, and the 16
So
foot.
the organ got bigger, but the stop list didn't necessarily.
Exactly.
And then, so our next 8 foot's a violin diapason. It's a diapason-y string. It's got a lot of edge to it, but not a cutting solitional or anything. Just a kind of a
Right.
nice warm diapason.
And those were meant to blend with the stopped flute to be able to combine them and get the bigger diapason when you wanted it.
So here it is with the 8-foot flute.
Just a little bit of
A
color.
little brightness to that. If we had the 4-foot flute on top of that, even. Let's see. And the string still kind of dominates that edginess, so it adds a lot of brightness there.
Yep.
Then we do have a real string, 8-foot solitional. Definitely edgy, bright, and not very loud. The box is completely open right now, so. The solitional then has the Vox Celeste to go with it. It's really bright cutting string, and if we close it down, really fighting to beat on that lowest C. We know that there is actually a contract coming to repair some of the old swell actions. It's not working quite as cleanly as I think it probably should, so we'll see what that looks like. And then, again, same as Sisters of Carondelet, one more small string in here. We have an 8-foot aeoline. Let's put the box open.
Yep.
Very soft.
The point of an aeoline is often missed now because we look at it as being way too soft to be usable, but imagine having a rather full choir or a group and a small ensemble that you needed to keep honest with their pitch, but you didn't want it to dominate. You didn't want it to sound like the organ was present. Mm-hmm. So the aeoline was specifically designed for that sound.
Yeah, that would be just enough to fill behind a few singers to add a little sound, but not make them think they're singing a cappella.
Exactly. And I find it interesting with an aeoline, it sounds a lot like a reed organ. And we have to remember a lot of these churches, in particular out here in the prairie, they would have had a reed organ that they would have carried on. So that sound was very much in their head, and when they moved on to the next best thing, they maybe took a little bit of that with them.
It's a useful sound. Yeah, we think of it kind of in more of a string, and it's got a stringy edge. But so soft that it almost doesn't contribute anything there. That's all of our flues in the swell. Then we have an 8-foot oboe, and this, I believe, unlike the Sisters, which had a real oboe, this one is a labial or synthetic oboe. It's got that bright edginess, but there's no reed sound there. Get a real quinty.
Yep.
So we'll have to see how Kilgen did that. We've seen a Wix labial oboe like that. And then we have, this was added later according to the files, a Vox Humana, which again, without a tremolo, it just kind of loses its effectiveness, but you could put it with the strings maybe. It's got the proper out of tuneness today for being a Vox. So yeah, an interesting addition that was what they needed more than a real oboe or say a trumpet in the grate or something.
I bet you it was space related. Vox Humanas are very small.
This is true.
Oboes are getting taller.
And we don't have a ton of space up here, so yeah, you could probably easily fit a little Vox Humana on the chest. Then we have, of course, the standard couplers for the swell, and that's our swell division. In the grate, we have 5 independent ranks here. We have no borrowing, starting, of course, with our first open diapason. That's a big open diapason sound.
The basses are in the facade.
Big, warm, and round, and the sound is right here in your face, because that's all that is. That little box there is just the grate, so it's all right in front of us. And then we have a 4-foot octave that goes on top of that, independent, not borrowed at all. Yeah, so definitely you could fill the church with that sound, but that's your big bright 4-foot. You can only super couple from there if you want to get something even brighter. That's a lot of sound from just 2 ranks of pipes there.
Exactly.
So that was obviously meant to be the bulk of the body of the organ for accompaniment there on the grate. And then we have 2 flutes in the grate, both independent, an 8-foot melodia. Very lovely. Not as. I think this one in the swell. It almost matches in volume. The grate's obviously a little brighter and more colorful and out in the open, but. Standard Kilgen's town there. And then the 4-foot is an independent harmonic flute. Very colorful, very little bright and chipper. And then in the middle of all that, an 8-foot dulciana, again, very soft. So a soft accompanimental stop. It's not loud enough to really do anything to, say, the flute. We can try.
Yeah, it's a little color.
Little Celeste when it's a little out of tune, but yeah, it's just not bright enough. It's just meant to be that small principal sound there on the grate, rather than that huge open diapason. So we got some variety there, and just out of a few stops. And of course, we have 2 pedal stops, one on either side, 16 and 8. So we have a big Borden, which is the one in the grate. Borrows to 8-foot as a bass flute. Yeah, so that's, if you imagine that underneath your grate 8 and 4. Definitely a big sound that you would need if you had a big crowd in here. So then the swell Lieblich, which is the same as the manual swell, and is very soft.
Very soft.
I would be very surprised if that's picking it up over just the room noise. So, and it borrows then to 8-foot as well. And that's the organ. Well, so there's no real surprises here in the console. I think, though, all of the questions we have are more related to what's back behind the case. So let's go take a look inside.
That's cool. I like finding all these bottles of stuff left over. Here's light grape wine, Schober's light grape wine, American claret wine. Produced and bottled by Joseph Schober, Afton, Missouri. There was a Joe Schober that worked at Wicks.
I assume that's oil in there now.
Yeah, it sure looks like it. Some very nasty looking oil.
So is this the original from 1926?
I think so. The simplex portion of it is from 14, it looks like. Yeah, so the Kilgen file has an order for a new motor, Century motor, which from 1936. This looks correct for that. And then it talks about a generator, which it looks like is back there, disconnected, belts on the floor, but that was probably the generator that they put in. And in fact, you can go back there and look. Let's see if it's a Century. Or an Emerson, I'm sorry. It's an Emerson. Which is what it says in the specification, so that's right. The pulley is still on the shaft. We could get the generator to start working if you'd like. So this housing would have been put in, most likely, with the original organ, or was repurposed from another older organ, and then they had an order to replace the motor about 10 years after the Kilgen files say that they put this organ together. Or at least rebuilt the organ. We're not exactly sure about that either. So it's very interesting, though. That's a big, good-sized motor. Single phase, it looks like. I see brushes on the inside. A simplex, though. That's another one of those Joe Schober. Oh, Garrett's American. That's really cool. Virginia Dare wine. It has its own little housing in here made of Celotex to keep the noise down. These things would have vibrated like crazy. Floor's even soft, so I bet you there's cork underneath this vinyl that they put down, or that's probably not vinyl, that's probably it's just a hardboard of some sort, but I bet you there's cork underneath it or Celotex underneath it. But they built a nice little room in here for that. New power supply, newer power supply. Looks 70s or so. Yeah, there's the contactor back there on the floor. That looks interesting. Get back in there. There's a new contactor up here on the wall. It's an old Cutler hammer contactor, and I don't think that has wires attached to it anymore, so we're good. Well, this is how it would have started originally. I think, I really don't want to be on camera for saying how this worked, but I think this is a dash pot. I think this is a magnetic coil. You push it, it gets energized, and it pops that into position, I think. Jeez. Yeah. Back here, this little funny little stack here is an opening down into the room below. It's an air intake, and they made a little chimney out of it, and made it also out of Celotex to cut down on some of the wind noise. Very interesting. Okay, so we're going to venture here into the swell. Find some screws to take out here. And right away we see our swell linkage and our swell motor. It's a pneumatic motor, similar to a whiffletree design. And this is the way that it works. This is all that is keeping it open. And then the pneumatics inside the box are what pull it shut. So as those pneumatics go, they lose the power to actually shut the box. And hence, as it's closing, sometimes you hear the shade engage and it leaks wind. It's because the pneumatics are blown.
There's a lot of graffiti on the back chest there. That's fun. Over on the left side.
Sure does. Look at that. Cool, cool. Oh, the Millers installed this. No kidding. 1926. October of 21. Oh, no, that's 26. I was going to say, wait a second. That can't be right. So there's our Vox Humana way back there in the hole. Yeah, so this is much easier to add a tiny little chest like that than the full chest for an oboe. I'm kind of interested in this. This is the unit chest up here up front. Before we get in there and look at that, this is how the swell stopped flute plays
so many pitches, as a friend of mine calls a zoot flute. It can play 16/8/4, all of that with a little small relay, but it has to have individual magnets, and these are the Kilgen magnet types there, but they're set into this board, which is interesting. I don't understand why they did that, though. It might be early. Stop action's not typical either. They almost look homemade, the little brackets here. This is not a typical Kilgen stop action for their vental chests, which this is a vental chest with a unit on the front. A keying action for the vental, the primaries, are in typical style. It has the opus number on it. Those are definitely original. However, the shellac and everything doesn't match the rest of this, so that's very interesting. All of this here for the stop action, that is very strange. I don't know that this is a stop action in traditional sense, but we'll go in there and we'll look. So originally the swell relay was mounted right here. It's still penciled in. This is the junction board for all of the wires. But there would have had to have been some sort of relay to handle the unit flute in here. The rest of it's straight, so they would have had key contacts here, and then they would have had their stop action wired directly into here for each one of these. They're lead tubes. This is still early enough, I guess, design to be like their tubular instruments. However, I've taken out and worked on enough mid-20s Kilgens to say that that's not exactly typical either. They had a different style of stop action during that time period. So when we get up top, we'll look at it from above, because that's the telltale of whether or not this was an older instrument borrowed from some other place. It kind of indicates that in the spec, but you know, from what the church history is this is an instrument that was their first instrument here. So it wasn't a rebuild per se, but the spec indicates that there's reusing of old pipework, so it's possible they reused old mechanics, except for it still has 3513, its opus number on it all over the place. Here again, lead tubing for all of this, for this offset here. It would go up onto the top of the chest, so for each one of those individual notes, it's playing a lead tube instead of playing a pipe sitting on a toe hole. And we have down here on the 16-foot Lieblich chest graffiti from when the organ was installed. WAM, WJP, October 23rd, 1926. And it says here William, or W.A. Miller, and I'm assuming that says October 20 of 1927. But I can't really tell. It's kind of scratched up there. Same thing, October 23rd, 1926, William A. Miller. Put up May 26, and then a guy named Carruthers was in here in 26, which matches with the Kilgen files for timeline. And the Millers are pretty prolific around here in the Midwest, and they ended up settling out in Kansas City. They worked for quite a few companies as installers and technicians.
That's what horse
Now that's interesting. They had problems with the pipes back there, and so they put little beards on them. They're old, though. I think it's possible that Lieblich, I wish we could get to it, but that Lieblich will tell us a different story of the age of this. That looks older. In particular, those down there. So when we go upstairs, we're going to find it and see if we can locate other information on it. This is also built in a way like a Kilgen tracker, so it's kind of neat to see the changeover between one era to another era. In particular, the box construction, the swell box construction, is like their old trackers. They're very small, thin blades No rabbiting on the sides for them to fit in between, or in to overlap in between the other shades. They just close on top of each other like this. And other thing they did, but I think they carried this on for a very long time, is they stamped Roman numerals for each individual blade. But the good news is I know how to get in and out of these things, because they're all the same. So let's do that. I guess we'll just do. Woo! Expected it to be an actual pipe.
They don't all speak.
Nope, they don't speak. Nothing's tubed in the front here. So.
Oh, okay. It just looked like it had a languid.
It does have a languid. Oh. I think
Like a
somebody
real languid.
found another pipe and put it in there. Yeah, I think the entrance is right here.
I think you're right.
There we go. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. Has a cute little monkey chest over here for all the trebles. So here we are in the swell. Right in the middle here is where the ventals are operating. You can see down there the little holes where the action exhausts. You can see it down there. This is definitely a tight space. These are the middle section of the 16-foot, 8-foot, 4-foot, 2-foot stop flute unit. You can see someone had used pencil and made note names and the stop flute name, and then they stamped it afterwards with a ink stamp. And then here again, I don't know if you can see, there we are. You can see that they actually used a wood stamp. And the bases of the diapason are wood. There's the aeoline in the back. You can see once upon a time it had been mitered and that they had straightened it out. So our ranks here is the stop flute, and then next is the labial oboe. Then it looks like the string and the diapason. Diapason tuning slides have something written on them. It looks like it says 2.5. And that one says 2 inches. I don't know if that's just measurements for the width of them and they didn't take them off before they shellacked it. A little bit of damage in here. The labial oboe is made of Hoyt, which is a little newer. Also, the labial oboe is a little newer pipework than it looks like the top of the Violin Diapason and the string. That's interesting. Back in the corner seems to be the aeoline. Also lovely spotted metal there. And way down there is the Vox Humana. You can see from above the tubular action for that offset chest. It's really cramped. It's hard to tell what's going on, but we're definitely looking at a mix between some old pipework, new pipework, maybe old chests and new chests. For the, well, this is the labial oboe. It's made of Hoyt, just stamped, no scribing. The languid has what we call a witch's hat, has a divot in it. Don't know that you'll be able to see that, but hopefully. And it has a bit of a taper to it. So a lot like the one that you did for St. John Nepomuk.
Which we believe might have been a Wix.
This is, however, the Kilgen version of it, more gamba-esque and a lot less of a taper. It's really fat at the base and stays pretty fat at the top. But this is the same concept, and to save space, they made quintadena bases here. This is definitely 20s. This is exactly what I would expect to see out of a 20s era Kilgen. Metal and voicing technique. I don't know that I can reach or touch into anything else that might be pertinent, but I'm going to try one other thing here while I'm at it. Nope, not that. Let's try this guy. Yeah, so this was probably replaced too. This is the Violin Diapason. It looks like the old style, not the 20s era. So yeah, it looks like this was probably an older instrument. I would say it was probably a tubular pneumatic originally, but we're going to look at the chest a little bit more and see.
There's the pin.
Thank you.
First. Let's see, which way does the shade go? This way.
Like a so. I've had to do this one-handed so many times it's not funny. The trim here.
I wondered about that because this has a wind line coming off.
Shellac's lovely, almost like it's been redone. Doesn't match any of the other wear and tear in the instrument. So I'm inclined to believe that this is a sidewinder chest, and therefore it's an early style action. It looks exactly like the one that I took out recently, and is that transition, like I said, between tubular and their normal pneumatic action. So I can't tell you that this is original, and I can't tell you that it's not original. It's right there at that cusp. But there's so many weird things it's very strange, and in particular, the bottom of that open diapason being wood and being of that kind. So I'm looking underneath the pipe to see if, because they would write on the bottom of the pipe what the note name was, but they'd also write sometimes what church it's going to. It'd be great if we could find another church name, and that would help us. Well, I'm 99.9% sure on the spec that it said the fact that the reeds came from Erie. This Vox Shimano looks like it's Godfrey.
That was pretty common though for them to get.
Yeah, oh yeah. They ordered from supply houses out east, American Organ Supply and Godfrey. So that it doesn't surprise me at all, but they made really nice stuff, that's for sure. I'll take this guy down for a minute. Much easier to get in this side. So here we are in the Great Division. Let's see here. This looks like the Dulciana. No, this is the harmonic flute, sorry. Probably the 8-foot open diapason. It's linen lead, and it starts lower in the progression. Or it's the 4-foot. It could also be the 4-foot octave. Melodia, Dulciana, and there's the 8-foot open diapason. So it is right up front and center. The basses are tubed off from the front of the chest, and when you turn on the stop action, it then allows the mechanism to fire the front facade chests. So that's how they were able to put the octave in the basses there. This is very interesting. I'm assuming this is the Dulciana as its small scale, but look at how they made it full length for whatever length they needed to on the facade, and then they mitered it behind, and you really can't tell from out front that it's that way. Harmonic flute's made of linen lead. This is very 20s. Interesting. Good construction. They reused zinc from somewhere else, or at least small sections of it, to make it instead of being wasteful and having to get a new sheet. This is the Dulciana. Can't tell if that's a scale or opus number. 57, I imagine that is a scale. Metal's hand planed, nice and smooth, really good stuff. This is their typical melodia. And I didn't really want to reach around and pick up the diapason because it'd probably give me a hernia. Also, linen lead is the 4-foot octave. Starts on F sharp here. I'm just looking for voicer's marks or wind pressures, things that are not congruent with what actually exists in the instrument, to give us an inclination as to whether the pipework was reused or had been changed in the process. I'm going to go around here so that I can reach the open. Yeah. That is a stout diapason. That's F sharp, open diapason. Maybe middle C will tell us something. Nope. I think he says enough whenever he plays. He doesn't need to tell us anymore. The metal, the way that it's built for the diapasons, are very much what Kilgen was doing in the 20s. Dulciana does not look like that. It looks older. Harmonic flute's also from the 20s, this Melodia. See, again, written in pencil and then stamped with ink and actual wood stamp. And what I'm looking for underneath here is to see if the foot maybe was offset, which is another telltale sign that somebody had repurposed pipework. Yeah. So that's probably original. This is the Mammoth Borden. That is some thick lumber. You know, the hooks are on the wrong side. That could be an indication that this was in a different place once upon a time, or that they got it in here and went, now who did that? That was stupid, and changed it. So let's look at the other pipes to see if their hooks are in different places. It's weird that these pipes are kind of in different places than the rest of them. Yeah, the hooks would have been in front. So this set's older. This got reclaimed from somewhere else. Without having an indication of price and any kind of correspondence, we don't know. Maybe the church said, we have a limited budget. We need to be able to do this. And Kilgen went, well, we've got stock pipes from something else that we can put in here. And that would explain that.
Because they feel older than, just more beat up and worn than the other wood pipes.
And having tuned enough of these instruments out, you know, in churches that have them in their original installation, you get accustomed to the way they look and the way they were laid out and how they did things earlier, and then kind of, you know, as they progressed. And so certain things kind of stand out as earlier construction style. The pegs for putting the pipes together, the fact that the hooks are on the front side, they would have put the swell box right in front of this, and the raster would have been attached to the swell box itself. All of that stuff kind of gives me the clue, the indication that this is at least old, and that some of the other things are old. And of course, we don't have definitive proof. No one is alive to tell us, oh yeah, we took that from this organ. Yeah, so this is the base of the Dulciana, and you can see it once upon a time it had been slotted, and or at least whatever this pipe was originally had been slotted. And they filled it in with linen lead instead of the spotted metal that this was made of originally. So it would indicate that they were reusing zincs, or that this set had a different design or a different purpose and then at the time of this installation that they fixed it with new pipe metal from the pipe shop. These posts look old and different.
Well, it did say something about having reconfigured the case to match the room, so either these were from another organ or just this organ, whatever it was before.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, getting into the grate division is so much easier than climbing in the other side. Yeah, this too looks that same chest style. There's the stop action, the key action, and as the key plays, it exhausts a channel that's in this board here, and then it goes up into the walls. If this is a sidewinder chest, it goes up into the walls, the dividers in between each rank, and then the pouch is actually affixed to the outside of that wall, and then it actuates a valve, and then it channels up and into a toe hole. So it's a Rube Goldberg way to do it. I see St. Louis pipe organ installed the relay right here. I don't know that we need to dig into that, unless you want to.
No, the one strange thing as I look at those Borden pipes, are just how the sides go below the block. Mm-hmm. Is that I've not seen that.
That is not a new Kilgen thing to do. That's what I was looking at too. And see, here is exactly what I was looking at for the Melodia. The toe hole was in a different place for these. They were offset, and they filled them and they reset and put new gated toes on them, or moved the toes to fit with a new chest. So this set looks old. The hook placement is different. The toes are different, so we can safely assume this is from an older organ, a different organ. And these are not tubed. This is a unit chest, so the Borden itself is on its own chest, and it's a unit action, unlike the facade pipes, which are tubed, and unlike the 16-foot Borden in the Swell, which is also tubed. So a mix of new style mechanics and old style mechanics. But like I said, having a company transition into a different style of building chests or a different action, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens slowly.
Trying to get to low C?
Yep. Well, that was disappointing. It did confirm all of these have their feet filled. And it looks like they don't have any other writing on here. Oh, well, I lied. Let's see what that says. That might just be the opus number, because they all seem to have the... I feel like Indiana Jones. Yeah, no, that's just the opus number. Well, disappointing. I got dirty for nothing. The script on here is definitely the old style script too. CCC is written really beautifully.
Chris, it looks like you had a great time cleaning out every little dark corner of this very dirty organ in places. Most of it's in really good shape and it's playing really well. We should say the church has signed a contract to have a lot of it reworked, and we wanted to come get a look at it while it was all still original as much as we could. Now, from what we know, work had been done on the organ, but we still don't know for sure really anything else about its origins other than there's something older.
Yes, there's lots of evidence of old pipe work, and also evidence that it's the things that the original spec said from 26. So very interesting indeed.
Yeah, so well, it was an interesting thing to explore and to see Kilgen at a transitory position. There was stuff like other organ stuff that was unique. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you then, Chris, for coming out and getting dirty for us and showing us, sharing your knowledge about the Kilgen Organ Company and these instruments and helping us all learn a little more about them. It was a joy to watch, and we'll be out on the road soon with more videos. Until then, you can always find streaming classical organ music on our 3 stations, organlive.com, Positively Baroque, and The Organ Experience. And if you would like to become a sponsor of the Organ Media Foundation and help us make new videos like this one, you can do that by going to organ.media and click on support. You can become just like Richard Bird, who donated last year and has made this video possible, made it possible for both of us to be here today. So thank you again, Chris.
My pleasure.
Until next time, I'm Brent Johnson. I'll talk to you later.
I look like a Q-tip in a coal mine, and you're fixing your hair.
Always, yes.
Thanks, Brent.